Right. It makes me think about, um, you know, presence. If presence is the antidote to rumination, um, essentially rumination is cycling through either your past, thoughts
Mm,
about your past, or thoughts about your future. And it
mm,
feels very basic, but it for me, it's helpful to think very simplistically about it.
yeah.
Um, so that I can like name it like, oh, I'm projecting into the future.
Mm,
That's not till 2 weeks from now. Or I'm thinking about the past. I can't do anything about that. Right.
right.
So it's like, okay, coming back to the present. And it's not easy to do if the trigger is big enough.
My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
So
Mhm.
Nancy is has been a guest, and Nancy will be a guest again. We actually have something that we want to talk about maybe later this year or early next year.
Mhm.
And but Walker is in the midst of trial, and so Nancy is stepping in to share this space with me so that we can um, explore a topic while Walker is busy preparing for trial and executing trials. So yeah,
Right.
yeah. So thank you, Nancy, for taking time out of your full life to have this conversation. So
You're welcome. I'm glad to hop in.
yeah,
Hop
yeah,
in and support the conversation.
yeah. Thank
Mm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about rumination. So Walker and I did some episodes with Dr. Stephen Alardi, who wrote The Depression Cure. And Dr. Alardi is part of the therapeutic lifestyle change model, working on rumination as part of what he considers necessary for long-term support in regards to depression symptoms. And so we had gotten feedback after the podcast that that word was a new word for some of our listeners. And so having this conversation with you, as we are both mental health professionals working with clients who struggle with ruminating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that, what was that phrase I said, earlier? Oh gosh, um, the heavy, isn't that funny? Like, where'd that phrase go? Oh, rumination feels circular, heavy, and unresolved. Yeah, yeah. So Nancy, um, when you hear that word, despite the Webster Dictionary definitions that you came across, which was also a cow chewing, swallowing, regurgitating, chewing some more, swallowing, regurgitating, chewing some more over and over.
Right.
It's fascinating that that is the definition of rumination, but it seems incredibly appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to mind for you when you think about your work as a clinician all this time? Yeah.
It definitely, before I looked that up as well, just to prepare for our chat, there's definitely a negative connotation to the word rumination.
Mhm.
For very seasoned patrons of therapy, clients who know what the word is, who's done maybe CBT, they talk about it, astutely about it being cyclical, it's like, oh, I'm doing it again, and there's awareness of it.
Yeah.
There's also some shame attached to it.
Mm.
It's like, oh, I'm ruminating again. I'm doing that again, like that they're doing a bad thing.
Mm.
Um, so, oftentimes I think about how that can complicate things because it's
Sure.
like that layer of shame that needs to be kind of like, just, taken out of the equation. Nothing about, it's not a moral thing, that you're ruminating. It's just, it's, it's, an experience of being stuck,
Mhm.
in a thought.
Yeah.
And once the shame is dispelled, we
Mm.
can actually, get to kind of excavating what the rumination is about,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
we all do it,
Yeah.
including myself,
Yeah.
because I'm human and we all are. So
Yes.
so that's what I initially kind of comes to mind.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then I found the definition of chewing, regurging, chewing. That's kind of yucky,
It
to think
is.
about. But there's also need for it for the cow. That's just how they digest, right?
Right.
But the cyclical nature of being stuck in that dynamic,
Right.
feels yucky too, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Could we, could
yeah.
we, can we take our rumination, our thought process rumination, and shift it enough that it becomes a reflection so that there's growth that comes with each regurgitation as
Right.
opposed to just this nonstop cycle. When you were sharing, Nancy, what I was thinking about was, I just think often we don't have an understanding or respect for the physiological part of how our body works.
Mm-hmm.
And that rumination um, can be a protective piece. It can be something that provided us some safety. And I'm not saying every time, but then
Mm-hmm.
we can get, I don't know, maybe too attached to the positive impact that we had, in that process of regurgitating. And that becomes our way of being, because it still feels safe and protective when, when often it's not protecting us or keeping us safe, then we are keeping ourselves stuck. And but understanding that our body plays a part too. I mean, and I just think we often just experience these things as so disconnected when when it's just all there and it's all playing a part, and that we can retrain, our mind to have a different experience.
Mm. Right. It can often be this, right, because we're experiencing and re-experiencing that for a purpose. It's not like
Right.
it's without reason. And one of the reasons is, as you said, this protective mechanism,
Mhm.
that we do.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, do you do any examples come to mind of, you know, how that could be protective in a way to ruminate?
I'm thinking what came to first was the not helpful one.
Right, right.
Um,
I mean, it can be both, right?
oh,
It's
absolutely.
like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what came to mind first was, I don't, typically have a hard time like sleeping. And I think that's, I mean, I've gone through different phases in my life for sure. Right now I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. I'm in menopause. I'm taking progesterone at night. That seems to be helpful. I sleep pretty deeply. I've been, actively engaged in therapy again the last few years after that trauma I had about 5 years ago. And so I think I sleep pretty well. And what was interesting was how we can have like different triggers. And my kids and I last weekend were loading up a pod to send furniture to Oregon. And had just begun loading, and I'm in the pod with Cameron, and Luke is playing with the door that slides down. And I think Cameron must have said something about like locking us in here. And my body, because I have this claustrophobic thing, right? And it's really not just like small spaces, because that pod was 8 by 8 by 16. So it's even somewhat transparent.
Like a room size or
Right,
some
like a
a
room
big,
set.
right.
Right. And even like the light comes through because of the material it's made out of, so it's not dark right in there. But my body had this, reaction of panic that came, and I said something about, if you shut that door, I'll kill you, something like that. The kids like
Mhm.
they know. And I know they like know I'm teasing, and I'm not, because I would kill you if you locked me in here. Um, and, uh, but what was interesting is it kind of stuck to me, right? Even though he never closed the door, right? He never did. But that then triggered something like in my body.
Mm,
And I was fine the rest of the day, didn't think about it. We're just loading, we're making great progress. And then I get to bed that night, and there it is. And so, even though it didn't happen, right?
mm,
Close the door. It was really the threat of the door being closed. And then my body in this state of like deeper, I don't know, well, non-movement actually, right? So I'm laying there in bed and I'm working on going to sleep. And then my mind says, don't you need to be worried about something? Don't you need to protect
mm,
yourself somehow? And then I was awake, and I tried like my things that I do, to help myself, and those weren't helping. And then it was interesting because then it went crazy, and I started like having thoughts about one of the kids having gotten locked in there with all this stuff. I mean, like, it was totally delusional.
mm,
And Walker's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, not right now." And then he's like, "Are you feeding off, my anxiety?" Because he's working on, getting ready for trial. And I was like, maybe that's adding to it. I don't think that's all it is. Right. And then, but I, was like going through this process. And then I started worrying, like, did we pack it too tight? We didn't put the mattress in last, we put it in first, we did it wrong. We're gonna the pod to Oregon, and we're not gonna be able to open the door. I mean, like, there was like this process where
mm,
I'm like second guessing, like stuff's gonna get broken, we didn't do it well. And I just was having such a hard time like getting out of this loop. And it was just feeling heavy. And in my mind, it was somehow connected to protection,
mm,
right? And so then, like, the next day, I called Luke and I said, "Hey, is the pod still there? Can you go and check and make sure, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that." And he's like, "It's gonna be fine, Mom." And I was like, "Yeah, it is. It's
mm,
gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine." But then I had to have another conversation with Walker. And I said, "Hey, babe, I just want you to know that, the kids and I are not movers, and we did not probably do this well and things are probably going to get broken.
Mm,
And so I just and I just need to say this all out loud so that I can sleep tonight and not worry about this again, right?
right, right.
But recognizing that it was that trigger around a fear that I had that this whole process snowballed, right? It was in saying it out loud to Luke that was helpful. It was
Mhm,
in saying it to Walker out loud that was helpful. And so instead of just in my mind, I made a choice to say something, right? And not in any heavy way or burdensome way, just this is what I'm concerned about.
mm,
So it's an interesting process that our brain can get into. That is, I mean, again, it's protective. If I just do this, if I just do that,
mm, mm.
then that's going to prevent any future problems. Maybe not.
Gotcha.
We may get to Oregon next week and we can't get the door open. But I decided that I'm going to worry about that then.
Mm,
So, so since I had that conversation with Walker, I don't know, maybe 5 days ago, it hasn't been on my mind. Until he
mm,
just said that. And then I was like, oh, yeah, there was that. That was ruminating, but I was able to actively work through it by saying something out loud. I mean,
mm,
saying to Walker when he said, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm thinking about this. And he was like, well, maybe it's some of my anxiety you're picking up on, which again, it could have been.
mhm, mhm.
I'm anxious. He's anxious.
Right,
It's bedtime. We're
right.
not moving. Our brains enter that, state, where we have, typically more theta. We're more suggestible, as we're moving into that sleep state, which is more delta. Um,
Mhm,
and I mean, I can think of these things like, oh, I know why this is happening right now. I've stopped moving. My
mm,
brain wants to go to sleep. I'm in this place.
mhm.
Easier for this to happen.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm.
So what are you thinking as I'm sharing that process?
Um, I'm appreciative of how, vulnerable you are and willing to share, personal experience of what, recent rumination looks like.
Mm,
And um, so that's my first first response is how appreciative I am of that. And it takes courage because, I think that, you know, um, I think that so often we kind of judge ourselves,
mm,
when we experience things, so then we don't look at it and you're like, "Hey, this is this is an example of mine," with big open arms. That's how I'm picturing it.
mm.
Just saying, "Hey, this is my experience and there's nothing to be ashamed about."
Right.
This is real life.
Right.
Um, so that's my first experience is appreciation.
Have you ever felt confused or overwhelmed in relationships? Theresa and I have come up with a free mini course that we think will really help you out with a lot of the common relationship experiences so that you can improve your communication skills with all of the people in your life and really make a change for the better.
Yeah, we really believe that everybody deserves the opportunity to learn healthy relationship skills so that we can get through life having a good, healthy relationship experience. So click the link, put your email in, you'll get the PDF, spend a few hours working on it, and please let us know what your experience is. We know it will benefit you in some way. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that one was pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Check.
Another insight that I got, and I don't know if this resonates with you, is that sometimes the things that you're ruminating about may not be the core issue. It might be related, because the initial trigger in your experience was possibly being enclosed and not being able to get out. So, there was that protective mechanism that is very normal,
Right.
right? So, and how that manifested went to other things, not
Right.
protecting the items. Maybe it's not going to be packed well. What will the move look like? So those ruminations, it's all protective, and it's almost, it reminds me of like, it's almost like the rock in the puddle, or in the pond, or you throw a rock in the still water and it like ripples out. So it's like the ripples aren't close. I mean, the ripples can go out very far, and the rumination, can be anything really after the triggering moment.
Right.
So that's one thought.
Yeah.
How does that land with you? Does
Yeah,
that resonate?
absolutely. I would guess, if we had, 50 people on the podcast with us right now. Yeah, that would be a common experience, right? Right. Why am I ruminating about this? Whether we have the awareness that there was a triggering event or not, right? We can
Right,
still be like, why am I ruminating about this?
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be very tricky, not only for the individual, but for maybe even the therapist who's kind of trying to figure out the source of the rumination, because we can fixate on like talking them out of it,
Right.
like, well, that's not really, that's not realistic, or that, but we're not talking to the anxiety or to the fear or to the mechanism of protection.
Right.
The content could be anything, right? And
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter what the rumination is about, whether it's rational or irrational.
Right.
There's no judgment there. It's like, oh, this is, it feels stuck. This experience keeps coming up and cycling through, right? And then eventually what helped were conversations, right? Being in relationship,
Yeah.
having people you trust, even say like, it's going to be okay, and just being like, just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Just needing
no.
some, to say it. Yeah. Sometimes we have a hard time getting there on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I do think, years ago, I wish I could remember, Nancy, when I started using the Mind Bell app, but it's been a long time. I mean, it may have been when you and I met, which would have been 15 years ago.
Mm.
The same app is not available. I mean, there is another app out there, but it is not the same app that I used. Um, but I came across it somehow. I don't remember. Someone probably told me about it. But you go in, you um, pick the sound. It's not an alarm. You set it to go off at approximately every 30 minutes or hour or whatever. And the approximately is because our brain picks up patterns. And if it's always at the same, time, our brain will actually start to discount it because it won't hear it. And so the
Mm.
approximately part helps our brain not discount it, even though sometimes we still won't hear it. But for me, it was setting a goal. And so when I first started using the Mind Bell app, It was just take a breath. Just make sure you're breathing. I know we're always breathing, but it's like the deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Like just being grounded. And then there was that use of it to become aware of, what I was thinking. And it just helped me become aware of what was happening in my mind because I wouldn't often recognize it, and so I could be in a kind of ruminating place for probably hours, maybe days before, I would have an awareness like this, like, how do I get out of this space that I am in? And so, if you hear the sound go off, and for me, it's always like a singing, like a brass bowl, like,
Mm.
sound that I have set up on my app. But when it goes off, during that period of time when I was trying to learn how to become more aware of my thoughts, it would be, what are you thinking right now? And then what can you do right now if you're struggling? Some type of action. Maybe it's just getting a drink, maybe it's smelling essential oils, maybe, and I mean like, that type of smelling, not the, oh, that smells good, really just kind of really being present. And that's something we were talking about earlier, is that presence, really teaching my body
Yeah.
to be here.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it was such a helpful app for me to train
Yeah.
mind to be more aware of what I was thinking,
Mm.
so that I could choose differently or not. I mean, we don't have to choose
Right.
differently.
Right. Yeah. And usually if you become aware and you still don't choose differently, it's still a choice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. It's like I'm still gonna go this direction because whatever. It's a choice.
Right? Because I'm not done thinking about it. Right? Except for myself a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's, what is happening for me? Why might that be happening? What is that connected to for me? What is the fear? What am I trying to protect? Right? Like all of the
Hmm.
process now is what,
Right.
when I recognize that I'm ruminating, not just how do I get out of this, but also what is happening for me and what's
Right.
happening for me. Because there's a reason. Again, my
Yeah.
body and mind thinks that it's important or necessary, right?
Yeah. Right. It makes me think about um, you know, presence. If presence is the antidote to rumination, um, essentially rumination is cycling through either your past, thoughts
Mm,
about your past, or thoughts about your future. And it
mm,
feels very basic, but it for me it's helpful to think very simplistically about it.
yeah.
Um, so that I can like name it like, oh, I'm projecting into the future.
Mm,
That's not till 2 weeks from now. Or I'm thinking about the past. I can't do anything about that. Right.
right.
So it's like, okay, coming back to the present. And it's not easy to do if the trigger is big enough, the
Mhm.
trigger of that activates the rumination.
Right. Yes, I like
So
that reflection.
it reminds me of, as you talk about rumination being kind of one of the key factors that to the lifestyle,
Yeah,
what
Dr.
was it?
Alarmy's a therapeutic lifestyle change.
Therapeutic, right?
Mhm.
That's helpful to think about because there's it reminds me of um, one of the theories for depression,
Mm.
um, to healing depression from Peter Levine in one of his books, what is it called? The Tiger, Waking the Tiger or something, is that it, what was it?
I can't remember. That sounds familiar, but I'll make sure that we have the right title of the book and the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there's a story that he was measuring, he was doing a mindfulness kind of meditation to, support people. He was doing research essentially. I'm paraphrasing very quickly, but the story is that there was a woman that came in, to his clinic and was being observed, and she was like, hooked up to a machine where they evaluated her levels and her nervous system. And what he was noticing as he was doing the meditation, she was, because she was clinically depressed for decades, right? Her her numbers were going down and down. Like she was already in a very kind of paralyzed place, and motivation was very low, if we were to look at the actual behaviors that come with depression. But her numbers were going down. So she was going like to a very, what felt like, no, this is the opposite of where you want to be. You actually want to be in a more kind of activated place or more balanced, right? She was going too far into the parasympathetic. So he just, in inspiration, he said, I think her name was Nancy too. I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but he was like, he said, there's a tiger, run, or something like that. And she, she was like, and her nervous system was, she visualized the tiger and visualized herself running, which would be a very protective thing to do for your nervous system, to protect your body. If there was a tiger running after you, your nervous, it would be wise to run, So she actually needed to activate her sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
And she was, she came back and she wasn't depressed anymore.
Wow.
Which was really powerful. So so one of the theories is that the metaphor that in somatic experiencing training is that they use to describe kind of that stuckness in parasympathetic is it's as if you're pressing the gas and the brakes at the same time. So you're suppressing the natural sympathetic nervous system with the brakes when you need to be more activated, right? So that creates this kind of shutdown, which is different than, because we go through, like there are natural ebbs and flows in our nervous system. Sometimes we're relaxing and that's parasympathetic, and then we're active, we're doing things, that's sympathetic. It's very normal. But the shutdown piece is the brakes and the gas at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's, that makes me think about kind of, perhaps another way to look at rumination is your body's and nervous system's attempt to protect oneself that was failed before, that didn't complete itself. So that's another, it's reminding me of that. So that's another way to kind of how my brain is understanding rumination, from a nervous system perspective and clinical perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that thought and example.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm relearning that we can do it differently. Yeah, when you're sharing, what came to mind, the polyvagal theory. So the dorsal vagal is like the stuck parasympathetic nervous system. And then there's the ventral vagal, which is the healthy parasympathetic part of the sympathetic nervous system, where it is more like presence, right? Where
Mhm.
we can be still and we can be present. And dorsal vagal is more like freeze. We are stuck in whatever that is, and that the only way we can get from dorsal vagal, the frozen part, into the healthier presence part is through the sympathetic nervous system, which has to be action of some kind.
Right.
We can't just think our way there. That there is something that we need to do, and it can be anything. I mean, me, talking to Walker about the fear that I was having, right?
Right.
Was enough to get me, shifted into, a peace about it, right? As opposed to a ruminative place about it.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting. Hmm.
Right. Not being alone in our experience is a powerful
Yes.
component to, supporting our nervous system. We're not in a vacuum.
Right.
We're here, we're related.
Yeah.
We're meant to support each other, not do this alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wonder, I imagine it's probably one of the most powerful ones, um, uh, in terms of access to healing,
Mm.
access to presence is somebody else's presence.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, share more.
Um, I'm trying to think of an example. I think when things get hard, having some accompaniment helps make that hard thing less hard. Um, so, hmm. So, one thing does come to mind is remembering when I had my ectopic emergency. I had an ectopic pregnancy. I knew something was wrong, something was not right. And one day there was a real emergency. There was a rupture, and it was scary. I was I was on the surface very calm looking, and as I was, being wheeled into um, the OR, there was a moment of presence with the team.
Mm.
And the main doctor, the main surgeon, the very experienced surgeon, was actually prompted to be present by the anesthesiologist.
Mm.
He said, the anesthesiologist was, let's huddle, let's check in. And everyone just like took a breath and was, talking to each other. And the attendee um, surgeon leaned into me, and she looked straight into my eyes. She had a mask on, so all I could see were her like gorgeous hazel eyes. And she she was like an angel in that moment because I was so scared. And she said, "This is normal. You know what we're doing? We do this all the time. This is like, part of a drill." And she just looked at me, and she told me, when the medicine was coming in. And I was like, okay, okay. And I thought she would break eye contact with me. Like I got the message, but she didn't stop looking at me. She just kept eye contact until I went to sleep. And right before I did, I just remembered like tearing up, and I was like, is this okay for me to be, emotional? But it was like I was able to release it because she was accompanying me in a very scary moment. And as I released my fears, I I was able to recover quickly post surgery. I mean, I still processed a lot. It was a big loss. But her presence, it felt like a unique experience in our medical machine that it feels like sometimes when we're going through surgery, right? But yeah, that helped my body release it. So I didn't have to hold on to it, my fear. I didn't have to be alone, like, kind of like be tough, like, okay, they're helping you, like grin and bear it kind of thing. She just, just saw into how scary this was. Like she didn't say anything. There were no words. It was just a sustained presence, eye contact that she was here. So, yeah. So that's what that's what comes to me in terms of accompaniment and how it can be. It's a very powerful way we heal as humans because we're relational. We're meant to be together and support one another.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Truly be present with each other.
say that again.
Truly be present with each other.
Yeah, right. Not just exchange the information and assume that the other person kind of received it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We still have so much to learn about presence and what presence is. Yeah. How our body experiences it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Nancy, as we're wrapping up, when someone has an experience of themselves ruminating, the things that, a few other things that come to mind is nature, going outside, walking barefoot in the grass, other things that we can do to try to get ourselves present. What comes to mind for you when you think about what someone might do to help themselves should they not have someone?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point because sometimes there isn't an available human in the moment, or maybe it doesn't feel safe, none of your relationships at the time you can think of feel safe. Hugging a tree, that's a relationship. The tree's alive, you know, the trees moving very slowly, much slower. But that's a relationship too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Animals.
Right. Animals.
Mhm. Yeah. I would just think animals don't always want a hug, though.
That's true.
Maybe trees don't either, but they just have
Mm,
less choice about it.
hmm
But going outside, feeling the wind or sun or, any how, what comes to mind is really any contrast to what state we're in, right? If we're cold, something hot. If we're hot, something cold, something that
hmm
helps us experience some contrast. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Get you outside of your thinking and into your body, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Yeah. A bath,
Yeah. Yeah.
submerging your body in water, even if it's like one of those base tubs. And, you know, if you're a bigger person, just like,
Oh, right.
you know. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, anything else come to mind that you want to touch on before we finish up?
I don't think so.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you for the conversation,
Thank you.
sharing the thoughts that you're sharing of your experience. Is powerful. I could feel it. Whew, when you were talking
hmm
about her never breaking her gaze with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Someone who understands presence and the impact
Right.
that it has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Powerful.
It is.
Mhm. Mm.
It's you know, maybe I do have a last thought, which is kind of releasing shame around rumination. If
Mm.
you're ruminating, if you catch yourself ruminating, that it's your body's best attempt at trying to protect you,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
There's always a reason,
Mhm.
and it's discoverable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is with effort and
Right.
intention. It is.
Yes, and even if you don't discover the source of the rumination today or
Right.
tomorrow or months
Mhm.
from now,
Mhm.
you still can have presence.
Yes.
You can still have breaks from the rumination. That's possible for you, and
Yeah.
that you deserve that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are
Thank
my last thoughts.
thank you. Hope. We need hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be different, that we can train ourselves, our mind, our body into having a
Mhm.
different experience.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you for today, Nancy. I appreciate it. And I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, anytime. And I look forward to the next conversation where Walker joins us
Yes.
and we have more to
Yes.
share.
Yes. Looking forward to that. Excited.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.